If you hear the words pinball-inspired action game, it's probably hard to conjure up a definitive image of exactly how that would work, but Creature in the Well takes a pretty good stab at it. Turns out pinball-inspired action game describes Creature in the Well dead on. At its core, it plays like a hack-and-slashy dungeon crawler, except your enemies are all pinball bumpers, and you defeat them by collecting and firing pinballs at them. Basically, imagine something like Hyper Light Drifter, but you fight entirely by batting projectiles at stuff. Oh yeah, there's also this creepy dude. Between the singular gameplay and the unique aesthetic, Creature in the Well shows a lot of promise right off the bat. But promise is just that, so let's take a look and see if it follows through. As always, I'm Alex, and this is First 5, where I ask if games are worth your time, not your money. I played a game for 5 hours, and I'm gonna tell you if those were 5 hours well spent. And today we're waking the great machine in Creature in the Well. There's a famous phrase that floats around writing circles. There are only 2 plots in all of literature. A person goes on a journey, or a stranger comes to town. And Creature in the Well is perhaps one of the purest representations of what the latter evokes foremost in the mind. The classic lone stranger riding into town, 6-shooter on their back, and getting wrapped up in that town's problems as they proceed to turn it on its head. Creature in the Well opens in similar fashion, with your little robot engineer working their way through a sandstorm only to come across a ramshackle town where everything is withering, nobody is happy, and everyone slams the door in your face and quietly watches through slits in the window as you silently walk down its dusty main road. Creature in the Well is all about trying to revive a fantastically massive machine to dispel a sandstorm while a mystical beast from the depths attempts to thwart your every move, but damn if it doesn't also evoke a good western. But your quest to reactivate the machine is largely framing. It doesn't really get much more in depth than giving some evocative flavor to the experience. What you really want to come to Creature in the Well for is its gameplay. See, you have to activate the machine one room at a time, and each wing is a dungeon you'll have to explore. In order to open new rooms, you need to gather energy, and in order to gather energy, you need to complete each room's challenge, which makes up Creature in the Well's core loop. Every room has a bunch of pinball bumper-looking machinery you need to juice up, and you do that by blasting pinballs into them. Sometimes you'll have to contend with obstacles that fight back when you hit them, and other times you'll have time challenges where you have to hit bumpers in a specific order. But regardless, knock down all the bumpers, and you clear the room. I'm very torn on Creature in the Well's gameplay. It's a clever, unique idea, but much like my opinion, it feels like the game is sometimes at odds with itself. This game is at its best when there are a million balls ricocheting around the room, causing unexpected mayhem, or obstacles force you to keep moving to survive. In these situations, Creature in the Well builds a decent rhythm and you fall into a state of flow. But encounter design in this game is kind of like a finely crafted net. When you walk into a room, there might be a tide of attacks to contend with, but the moment you take down a single obstacle, the net has a hole in it, and you usually get a safe area you can chill in while you slowly plink away at the rest of the room. The charge system also only lets you charge 3 balls at a time. If you accidentally pull in more than that, the extras just poof out of existence. So you're always passively trimming down the number of balls flying around at any given moment just by proximity. Likewise, a majority of Creature in the Well is actually a pretty chill experience. Most attacks don't damage you too horribly, and I found an early game item that does an almost excessive amount of healing, so I was only very rarely at risk of actually dying. And when you consider what we just covered talking about how rooms are constructed, Creature in the Well feels almost more like a puzzle game than a hack and slasher that's out to kill you. But there's always 1 or 2 challenges in any given dungeon that completely smash that chill, puzzly vibe and demand absolute mechanical accuracy, and they're almost always the timed challenges. The way they work is that you usually have to hit a rapid succession of bumpers. Each time you knock one down, a new one pops up, and you get 2 to 5 seconds to knock the next down, etc., etc. But these challenges can be ridiculously tight, to the point where if you miss once in a rapid succession of like 7 shots, you might as well just start over. And all of that is what I mean when I say it feels like the game is at odds with itself. Creature in the Well is at its most entertaining when the situation forces you to move or something unexpected happens, but I constantly felt encouraged to stand still and take it slow. And a good 80% of the game feels like a pretty chill, puzzly time methodically picking apart each room. right up until the game throws a time challenge at you and it's less about figuring out how to dismantle an obstacle and more about raw, impeccable mechanical skill and reflexes. However, and here's gonna be the hard left turn, I still liked the game. There are a lot of individual details in Creature in the Well's execution that clash with each other, but the core concept is still sound. You're gonna be hard-pressed to find something exactly like this anywhere else, and the whole pinball side of it is still an interesting restriction on the usual hack-and-slash gameplay. And what ultimately sold the game for me was its variety. For every time challenge that made me groan, there would be another room that pulled an unexpected and cool twist on established mechanics. Creature in the Well is enjoyable in the same way Rube Goldberg machines are, just for the pure joy of seeing all the unexpected and interesting ways different components click together. It only really has 4 or 5 basic pieces to work with, but like with a lot of great games, the developers found a ton of different ways to mix and match them to create unique situations. There's also a lot to be said for Creature in the Well's aesthetic. You would think that pinball bumpers would stick out like horribly sore thumbs, but it turns out that they blend in perfectly with all the other ancient, rusted-out machinery that makes up the game's environments. The eponymous creature also makes for a surprisingly good boogeyman, and a good case for how less is sometimes more. You never get to see what it truly looks like, but in this case, imagination building on the few details you do get to see doubtless creates a scarier image than unmasking the creature ever would have. But let's get to asking. What do you get out of 5 hours with Creature in the Well? I scooted across the finish line with about 15 minutes to spare, but your playtime may be a little longer or shorter depending on how easily you tear through it. And while I had my difficulties with it, I still ultimately ended up enjoying the game overall. It throws everything it has at the wall across 8 quick dungeons with a dozen or 2 rooms each, and when it runs out of ideas, it actually ends. And that's a big plus. Creature in the Well is, if nothing else, an interesting experiment, and I think that on balance, it's one that ultimately works. It's not an essential pickup or anything, but if you're looking for something short and a little different to play over the weekend, you'll have a good time with this one. If you're looking for more hack-and-slash goodness, I just covered the fantastic Astral Chain last week, or you can check out my less enthusiastic opinion on Rad. But I hope you enjoyed this first 5 review. If you did, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. If you're looking for games that value your time and don't pad themselves, I'm your guy. Thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you all next week.